So this is the gospel that I've been reading throughout the series of Lent. This is the gospel that all of you heard on Ash Wednesday. But I say to you that listen, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also, and from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you, and if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do the same. If you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much again. But love your enemies. Do good and lend, expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High. For God is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. So be merciful, just as your Father in heaven is merciful. Fifth Sunday in Lent. Have we had a great pilgrimage or what? I don't know about you. I have. I've enjoyed every Sunday preaching on a different individual who's been important in my life. I like to talk about myself. But more than myself, I like to talk about people that have had a influence on my spiritual pilgrimage. I really enjoyed talking about Cynthia Bourgeot, who single-handedly rescued Christianity for me. I'm grateful for that. And then Uncle Jim Finley, who's preaching and speaking. You can pick me up with a spatula off the floor when I listen to. I love Jim. And then it was very edifying for me to focus on Karen Armstrong. I don't know how many of you have watched any of her YouTubes, but if you pay attention to anything, it's important to read her autobiography, The Spiral Staircase, which is, kind of the journey of her life from obscurity into international notoriety, especially on the subject of Islam and comparative religion. Karen Armstrong's great. Last week, Archbishop Tutu. If anybody, has the right to talk about how important it is not to forgive, Tutu would be one of them. And the fact that that's all he talks about gives me hope, maybe you too. I know you've been wronged by people and hate them and resent them. You don't have to if you don't want to. And Tutu is a living witness, really a saint in our own time. And this morning I'm going to kind of wrap it all up with Joan Chittister, Sister Joan Chittister. I don't know how many of you know her, of her work. Prolific. I mean, my gosh, she's been a nun for almost 56 years. In the Order of St. Benedict. Her convent is in Erie, Pennsylvania. And, it's one thing to poke fun at the church. I've always looked at church criticism as a bit like hunting wounded prey. The church is just so flawed. And perhaps none more flawed than the Roman Catholic Church. But she's, and it's perfectly justifiable for people to say, I've had it. I'm out of here. I'm either becoming a Protestant or an atheist, but I'm not. This is too much. And Joan has stayed faithful to her order, faithful to the Catholic tradition, but continues in the midst of that to be a strident feminist. So this morning I'm going to throw a bone to the women. And evolution has not been kind to you. evolution has not done well to women. You know, I'm remembering a number of years ago, I've often told you about, I'm a big fan of Ken Burns and his documentaries, and a number of years ago, I was watching a documentary called Not for Ourselves Only, and it was really a profile of the women's suffrage movement, and it was really based on the life of Elizabeth Cady Stanton. How many know Elizabeth Cady Stanton? Show of hands, yeah. Susan B. Anthony, anybody know Susan B. Anthony? Okay, you know, we just came through a week of women's history, and if you don't know who those two women are, you missed the point. They are so crucial to the history of women in the United States, so crucial to the right to vote, and amazing, amazing women who stood up and said, time has come, boys. And I think, you know, what may be happening, I could be wrong, evolution could be on your side if you're a woman. Could be. Should be. Could be. I don't think we'd be in the mess we are in as a species if women held positions of leadership on a worldwide basis. Anyway. So I'm watching Cady Stanton, I'm watching Susan B. Anthony, and my daughter walks in. You know, she's about 14. I think she was maybe a freshman in high school, something like that. And, oh, hey, Dad, what you watching? Well, I'm watching this show on women's suffrage. He said, well, what's that? I said, well, this was the fight that women had to go through in the earlier part of the 1900s in order to be able to vote. Women got the right to vote in 1920. She said, what? I said, yeah, it's less than 100 years ago. And women were not allowed to vote, hold property, political office. Women were in the kitchen, raising the babies, and that was about it. You know, it's interesting that, you know, they give 5 reasons why women weren't allowed to vote. Number 1, voting is stressful and would make women infertile. Really. Another strong argument that was that women's brains were biologically inferior and they didn't have the wherewithal mentally to assess the political process in a way that enabled them to vote. Really. Another good reason that a lot of women didn't want to vote. Oh, men should vote. Men should vote. That was a reason, yeah. Another one was politics was just too dirty, too grimy a phenomenon, and women should remain free from it. Those were all arguments. Those were all arguments against the right of women to vote. Now, we've come some way. We have come some way. But in no way have we come even close to all the way. I mean, you ask any woman in the workplace, do you work alongside men with an equal salary or opportunity? No, we're not there yet. And I'll tell you what, you might not want to be a woman in this country, but you for sure don't want to be a woman in a developing country. You know, they don't call them women's shelters for nothing. And anyway, you know, I tried to raise my daughter with a different ethic than that. She's confident in her own skin. But, you know, this is a TED Talk. We're going to watch this morning a TED Talk that Joan Chittister offered in 2012. And my mother would say about a person like Joan Chittister, she's got pluck. And if you're a guy, I hope this makes you really uncomfortable. And if you're a woman, I hope you find this encouraging. But Joni Chittister is offering a TED Talk about women, to women. And the umbrella under which this particular talk falls is the relationship between fact and faith, science and spirituality, a field that I am desperately interested in. But she's talking to a group of women. It's a soft audience for her, but she is not pulling a punch. And this is Joni, Sister Joan, I think, at her best. Enjoy.
Obviously, the disguise is working. I'm really just a pussycat. I want to talk to you today about two stories and the space between them and their relationship to women and the rest of the world. The first story is this one. An old woman says to a young woman, "Old woman, what is woman's heaviest burden?" And the old woman looks at her for a minute and says, "Child, a woman's heaviest burden is to have no burden to carry at all." That's not an answer. That is a wail that rings through centuries of systems that have made women invisible, had no time to listen to their questions, let alone to honor their answers to the problems of life. This morning's question is, how do we account for this as people of faith? And how can that happen to half the human race? The answer is not as difficult as it may first seem, actually. We can account for this once we know that the fact is that the status of women has always been a matter of faith. It has a religious foundation. Given the interpretations of the Abrahamic creation story, the second-class status of women throughout the ages has always been called God's will. But between that kind of faith and the facts of science today, there is now a great gaping space in the way we once looked at the definition of God and life and the way we're beginning to see those things now. Now, in our time, Darwin and those findings that followed from his are reshaping the very way we think about creation. You and I live at a crossover moment in time, meaning that whatever has been considered true up to this time will not be considered true after this time. Just as Galileo's telescope made us rethink our place in the universe, evolution is now casting new light on the nature of God and our own responsibilities in this world as human. It even affects the way we think about ourselves, and it must definitely affect the way we think about women, because these facts from science are challenging what up till now faith always demanded, and those implications are life-changing. I want to take a few minutes to look at each. According to the classical rendering of the scriptures, the world was personally designed by God. One level, one stage, one item, one event, one person at a time. We went from the sun and the moon to the sea, to nature, to animals, and finally to that great crown of creation, the male one. They gave us life as a pyramid with God on top, and the male Adam, God's chosen agent. Who is a God like that? The God of classical scripture is a creator, a personal designer of life. That God is also a lawgiver, to be obeyed here so you can get someplace better later. That God is a judge who rewards obedience and punishes for failure. And that God is clearly a male patriarch, who means, therefore, that males have always been closer to God. Point: hierarchy is built right into that system. The images of God that derive from that model are just as clear. God's a vending machine. You want to win the lottery? Ask God. You need a scholarship? You can get it. You want a raise? Say the right prayer. Harry Emerson Fosdick says that makes God a cosmic bellboy. God in that world is a magician. That's the God who turns red lights green before you get to the corner. That God is a tempter who is testing us to catch us sinning. That's the gotcha God. And that God is the manipulator of nature. That God sends Sandy and Katrina. I have heard experts in the country say, in order to punish us for homosexuality and premarital sex. I notice we have no tornadoes directed at cruise missiles or Hiroshima. In that worldview, God has a plan for everybody. You're supposed to be able to figure it out before it's too late. That's one God of life. but we're getting a new view of creation now that is emerging in the scriptures of science. In those scriptures, life comes out of a big bang, a cosmic explosion that spews the components of life into the atmosphere and enables and allows them to evolve variously, slowly, singly. And creation in this model is not a series of unique personal acts designed by God as they are in creationism. They are the acts of a great God who says, my gift to you is life, use it well. At this point in these scriptures, some people say, well, in that case, there is no God. God's passé. We don't need a God. We are self-sufficient. But others, maybe thinking more deeply, say, maybe? Really? Well, who put the fire in the Big Bang? They say, no, evolution isn't irreconcilable with faith. This is a great God, a humble God, allowing life to work itself out. If that's the case, and I truly believe it is, it's not necessary for us to rethink the existence of God. What is necessary for us is to rethink our own definitions of God. This old world begins to weaken a little under the challenges of science. That's true. But science is also enabling us to see new dimensions of God. What are they? Let's look at the kind of theology of life that is emerging now through evolution. First, in this model of theology, creation is a work in progress. Each of us is a bit of it, and each of us is meant to complete our own and all of life around us that is our responsibility. God here is the God of ongoing creation, not the God of past rules. This is the God who shares responsibility with the human race. And this is not about discovering a black box full of hidden plans about me. It's about dealing with now in a holy, wholesome way. In this theology of life, failure is not failure. It's a part of the process. It's built into life, all life. It's about learning when you hit the wall, adjusting when you fall down the stairs, trying when you didn't make it. It's not about perfectionism. All we know about perfectionism is that you and I are perfectly aware that it's perfectly impossible. Here, free will really gets to be important. It is my will. It's not God waiting to see if I get to the answer that God wants me to get to. In free will, everything that you and I do changes the world everywhere and for everyone. We know that God doesn't create evil. We do. God didn't create cruise missiles and nuclear bombs. We did. And we can uncreate them anytime we want to. Why? Because in this model, we have a responsibility to the ongoing creation of life, and we share that with our humble God, who is accompanying us right now, here, with you and me, not monitoring us, not abandoning us, not setting out to catch us, but to say to us, I'm with you, I'm with you. You did great yesterday. We can match it today. This God is a summoning God, saying, don't stop now. Come on, don't stop growing now. Don't close your mind now. Don't stop your soul now. I have so much more that you can find if you'll just look. What does it mean then? Well, the classical view says humans are powerless, women most of all. Humans are rule keepers. God's the scorekeeper. And the sanctification of self is what's central and critical. It's a kind of a spiritual narcissism. You'll love it. All of life is all about me and my getting somewhere else. The scientific view is the opposite of that. Turn it over. In this view, life unfolds. Where you've been is part of where you should be, and it's the experience you need to go where you will go. here, growth is ongoing for all of us. All life is the same. We all have gifts for everyone. Here, failure is a learning situation. And here, God is with us as we grow, to strengthen us, to encourage us, to call us on to fullness. The classical scriptures are right there. They call God Emmanuel, God with us. So what is science calling us to? Science is calling us to a new Galileo moment. It's all over now. You're building the new. It's been given to you. This is what's responsible. Find this God that is the starlight of your life and follow that God to the rest of your life. This science is giving us a whole new sense of purpose in life. Yes, it's about the development of myself, but it's about the development of the entire world as well. This view of life says we are all equally responsible, men and women. This science is giving us a God big enough to believe in. And what are the implications for women? There's a major difference here. Do you notice? No male hierarchy in the plan. No pyramids. No submission. No second class. Women and men are equal agents in the enterprise of life. What you do not do as women will not get done, is not being done, and you read the morning paper and you complain about that when you haven't done your part because nobody's allowing you to do your part. Here, women are meant to be equal participants in human decision-making, and women too are co-creators and agents of life in the world who must take their equal place in the human enterprise fully. Which leads to the second story. Once upon a time, on the way to the temple, an old Sufi dropped to his knees, began to dig through the sand. Finally, pilgrims surrounded him, trying to help him dig and find what he was looking for. They said, "Sufi, what are you doing here?" He said, "I lost my treasure." Hours later, the sun got hotter and drier. Finally, one pilgrim had the sense to say to him, "Sufi, are you sure you lost your treasure here?" The old man got up, he said, No, I didn't lose my treasure here. I lost my treasure over there on the other side of the mountains. And the pilgrim said, "Well, if you know that you lost your treasure on the other side of the mountains, what are you doing? Why are you digging here?" He said, "Because there's more light here." Evolution is shedding new light on our lives. Be sure you're looking in the right place for the fullness of yours. Chardin says the only task worthy of our efforts is to construct the future. But time changes nothing. People do. Clearly, we must each do something to change the future for both women and men. For as Toffler reminds us, if we do not shape the future, we shall be compelled to endure it. Right now, dear friends, read the paper. This world is seen through one eye, hearing with one ear, and thinking with one half the human mind, and its decisions show it. The world cannot bear much more of that. Do something to change the future for women as well as men, for men as well as women, for our children, for life everywhere. Thank you.
Contributions to St. Luke's Episcopal Church help to make the digital ministry and other outreach within the community possible. If it is in your heart to make a donation, St. Luke's secure PayPal link, as well as the church's mailing information, may be found in the description of this video. Thank you.